Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Midlife Crisis. I am Kay Chamberlain, and this week we're going to be talking about Final Night, because this is the show where I talk about not every single DC event, but like the big ones that involve a lot of characters. And the next one up on our list is Final Night, because we're doing it in chronological order. I tried to do some research beforehand because I wanted to know how Final Night came about, and in all honesty, I can't find anything. I can't find any interviews or anything with Kyle Kessel, the writer, any of the artists. The best guess I can come up with is that, like, if I was to guess how this event came about, it's just that, like, Kyle Kessel obviously just pitched this to DC, and as like this whole idea of like, it's the final night of planet Earth. You know, planet Earth's sun gets eaten, and this event chronicles like how everyone reacts to this final night and whether or not they're going to be able to survive. And I'm guessing that's what he pitched to DC. DC liked it. He probably also pitched some ideas with Green Lantern, because Hal Jordan plays a role in this event. Last time we saw him was as Parallax in 0 Hour, and he returns in this event as Parallax. It's no spoiler, he's a big part of this event. But yeah, that's as much as I know about how this event really came about. But yeah, it's written by Kyle Kessel with art by Stuart Emerson and Jose Marzan Jr., a name you were probably used to because he writes, like, he does inking for a lot of stuff. It's probably the inker that I've read the most work from, because he's especially done The Flash, and I think he did Green Lantern as well. But yeah, we're going to get straight into the final night. But before I do, if you're watching on YouTube, then please subscribe and like the video. And also, before I get straight into it, I'm not going to be doing all the tie-ins. There's quite a few tie-ins for this. They're mostly self-contained, and it's usually just like, what is this character getting up to on the final night? How are they reacting to this? But there are a couple of tie-ins that I'm going to talk about. I will be doing the Flash one, because we're doing the Flash, so I have to include that one. And I will be including, like, I will be covering in its entirety Green Lantern issue 81, because that serves as an epilogue to this, in the same way that it served an epilogue to 0 Hour. And I will also be covering, like, I'll talk about Green Lantern issue 80 because I read it, but I'm not gonna like cover it page by page because it's really not that important to the overall event. But I will summarize it. I'll say, like, this is what happened in this, you know, tie-in that I read. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started with Final Night. Before we start issue 1, there's actually a little preview to the event that follows Starfire, aka Coriander. So, obviously she's a Teen Titan, and at the end of Marv Wolfman's Titans run, there was this massive storyline that involved the Titans helping Starfire fight off the Gordanians as they tried to invade Tamaran again. So it's kind of like the circle coming back to the start again, where like the first issue of Teen Titans, like New Teen Titans, was them fighting the Gordanians, invading Earth, and then at the very end it's they're invading Tamaran. And she meets this guy named Faison, who is a general, and she ends up marrying him at the end of the arc, and she resumes her duties as princess of Tamaran and leaves Earth and begins living on Tamaran. And she also teams up with her sister for the first time. Like, her and Blackfire have come to an understanding. Blackfire is the queen, so she's the one that like orders everyone around and has this. She has superiority over Starfire, but that's only because Starfire allowed her, because she believes that Blackfire is a better leader. So yeah, that's all the backstory we need to know. So we start off on Tamaran. Tamaran is having its final night. Something has happened to their sun. It's been destroyed somehow by some mysterious enemy. They believe this enemy to just be like another race or something that is trying to destroy them. They don't really know exactly what is behind this. But they find an intruder who is also a Tamaran, and they call this one a Dark One. So I think it's because this Tamaran is from like another part of the planet, so they've got like darker colored skin than the lighter skinned Tamaranians. They kind of treat her a little bit differently. They think that she's an enemy because when she arrives, they ask her questions, and she goes to reach for what looks like a weapon, and they destroy it, and they decide to put her in a cell. And Starfire goes and visits her because she's got a, because she's a good person. And she comes to the conclusion in her own mind that it wasn't a weapon that this woman was reaching for. It was a communication device. Like, it was a translator, because she can't speak the same language as them. So Blackstar and Phison decide that they're going to attack this enemy head on, whatever it is. So Blackstar wants to send out an entire fleet, and Starfire doesn't know that they're doing this. So Blackstar sends out this entire fleet to go fight this enemy. And Starfire comes in with the intruder, and Blackfire is like, what are you doing? She's the intruder, she's the enemy, why are you bringing her in here? And Starfire is like, because I think that she came here to help us, not hurt us. Like, just listen to her. And this intruder starts, like, making signs in the ground for them to read so that they can understand her. And then Physon's fleet is attacked by a mysterious thing that we don't get to see. And the fleet is entirely wiped out, which means that Starfire's husband, who she was married to for, like, 2 issues, is dead. And nobody cares. We don't care because he was a creep. Because he's like 20 years older than her or something. And in the canon of DC, it's weird because I think Starfire is supposed to be like 21 or something at the moment. And this guy is like 38, something like that. He's in like his late 30s. So Starfire goes to the graves of all these people that died in this fleet. There's like 100. There's over 100 people that died. And meanwhile, Blackfire is going to torture the intruder to get answers out of her. And Starfire's like, no! If we're going to get answers out of her, it's going to be me because I know how to treat her properly. We're not going to hurt her. And so Starfire takes her to a ship to get them off the planet. And Blackfire is like, she's a traitor. You know, she told me that she was just going to get questions out of her. But they're fleeing the planet. Like, shoot them. And so Blackfire tries to shoot down the ship that has Starfire and this woman in it, whose name we still don't know. But they miss her. And then as Starfire is in the ship, she mentions how she's going to go somewhere, probably Earth, to try and learn about, like, this, what's happening from this woman. And as she's thinking about this to herself, Tamaran blows up. It just gets completely obliterated, leaving Starfire completely distraught because everyone's dead except her. Her sister's dead. Whatever remained of her family, they're all dead. Everyone's dead except for her. And so she heads to Earth because she needs their help. Because the only people she knows now live there. And as the ship enters Earth's orbit, Superman is with the Legion of Superheroes. And they sense the ship coming in. And Superman is like, when this ship lands, we'll be ready. So it seems like the Legion of Superheroes know what's going to happen. And they know that the person on that ship is the key to all of this. And so Superman is going to do something. What is he going to do? What did they tell him? Like, did they tell him to, like, destroy the ship when it enters orbit? Is he going to go out and talk to Starfire? Are they going to destroy the ship before they even realize that Starfire is the one on it? we're going to have to find out in the next issue, in Final Night issue 1, because that was just the preview. Already, stakes are high. An entire planet that is very important to DC lore has been destroyed. You know, Tamaran has played a large role in not only Teen Titans, but, like, it played a pretty big role in Crisis on Infinite Earths and Invasion. So the fact that it's destroyed now is pretty crazy. But yeah, let's get straight into The Final Night, Issue 1, Week 1, Armageddon. So, in Issue 1, everything on Earth is normal, as usual, but then they notice that something is kind of eclipsing the sun, but it's not an eclipse. It's just the ship that Starfire and this woman, this alien woman is in. They approach Earth, and the people on Earth don't figure out that the ship is actually landing until it's too late to create any kind of, like, proper welcome. So their welcome just ends up being Superman showing up with the Legion of Superheroes and the Legion of Superheroes and the Metropolis Crime, the Metropolis Special Crimes Unit, and basically he's just like, Superman's just like, I hope you're here in peace for your own sake. Can you understand me? Can you even hear me? And this alien woman tries to speak and points at the sun, and Dan Turpin is like, oh wow, it's great, she came here just to warn us about the big yellow ball in the sky. And Maggie's like, I don't think that's exactly what she's talking about, I'm guessing she means something else. And the Legions can understand what she's saying because they've got universal translators in their rings. And so Cosmic Boy is like, she's referring to the Darkest Night, but the Darkest Night is supposed to be a tale, like it's not supposed to be real. And Superman's like, hey, what's everyone talking about? He's like, sorry, Superman, not sure we have another U-Tran device with us. And so Saturn Girl, who has telepathy, is like, I can connect my mind to her and allow her to speak to you all, or like learn our language so she can tell us what's going on. And this woman draws her gun because she thinks that like Saturn Girl is going to attack her, and Cosmic Boy uses his magnet abilities to take the gun away, and then Saturn Girl connects her telepathic powers with this woman and teaches her how to speak English, and she begins to communicate. And she's like, no time at all, your world is about to die, the Sun Eater is coming. With sorrow I say I can only stay a short distance ahead of it, for its course is as impossible to predict as the weather. But I have observed the dark deeds many times, and I can say for a certainty that it is coming for your sun now. If it is not with your solar system at present, it will be in a short... If it is not within your solar system at present, it will be in a short time. It will envelop your sun and steal its light and heat from you. Your crops will wither, your waters will freeze, and that is only the beginning. There is no way to stop it. I offer this warning as I have 100 times before, with the hope that some may escape this doomed world. But we have lost precious hours since my arrival, and I fear more and more that your people will suffer the same fate as mine. And apparently they learnt her name. Her name is Dusk in between, because Superman is like, oh, thank you, Dusk. Did you hear everyone? Turn on the lights. And it turns out that at some point off panel, they moved Dusk as she was giving her speech, like, to a facility, but they had all the lights off, so she couldn't see who she was talking to, I guess. But they turn on the lights on, and everyone's there, or at least a lot of people there. It's not everyone, but it's a lot of heroes. And Superman introduces this Dr. Falconer, who works at Star Labs, to explain what's going on. And she's like, we can't fully understand what she's really talking about, but we will say that there has been this dark shape moving across the star field, estimated to be over 1 million miles across. It absorbs all light and energy, and its trajectory sets it on a direct path for the sun, which gives her a lot of credibility. But we won't know until 6 hours' time. And Brainiac 5 is like, you know, I doubt we get any further data. Like, Dusk's ship never recorded information about the Sun Eater, and your world's technology is too bad to be able, like, it sucks, and we can't get the data that we need. And Wonder Woman's like, well, there has to be something we can do. We can just attack this Sun Eater head on, try and negate it somehow or stop it. And Dusk is like, I've seen many worlds try to stop the Sun Eater, and none of them have succeeded. And Barter is like, yes, but the Sun Eater has never gone up against new gods before. Mr. Miracle here could just create a boom tube, suck it in, because boom tubes are supposed to be able to, like, they have like the force of a black hole, so they should be able to deal with this Sun Eater. And Mr. Miracle is like, yeah, like, we could probably do that. We could go out there with boom tube, you know, I could go out, like, and Captain Atom is like, me and the Justice League, we could go with you. And Superman is like, alright, they'll go out together. Like, Mr. Miracle, Barter, Captain Atom, some of the Justice League members will go out and do a boom tube in order to try and trap the Sun Eater. And we'll serve as a decoy. So, myself, Ultra Boy, Ray, Firestorm, Fire, Alpha Centurion, you have a ship. You can come with us. We can use your ship. And then Superman tells Guy Gardner to go and grab or who his name is. He's the warrior at the moment. Tells Guy Gardner to go and grab a bunch of people to help Batman in case they need to protect anyone on Earth. Because Batman's always the guy that, like, stays on Earth and has to protect it while all of the super beings go out into space. So, using a boom tube, Mr. Miracle and his group head out into space, and they see the Sun Eater, which is basically just a giant black hole. And Mr. Miracle sets off a boom tube, attempting to suck it in. And it doesn't work. The Sun Eater negates the boom tube, and it actually gets turned back on Mr. Miracle and his group, and they just get teleported to another part of space. And they're just like, what the hell happened? Like, and Mr. Miracle is like, I actually dragged us into this character named Tachyon, because Mr. Miracle was like, I don't know what happened, and Tachyon, who was this other character, was like, I pulled us into the boom tube out of danger because we were about to die. Like, the Sun Eater was about to kill us. So I drew us into the boom tube. So that's why we got teleported. Meanwhile, the Phantom Stranger goes and visits the Spectre, because earlier on, somebody, I think it was Wonder Woman, was like, why don't we go and ask the Spectre to help? Because he's so powerful. So Phantom Stranger goes to ask the Spectre and is like, why aren't you helping? And Spectre was like, you know why I'm not helping. I never help during these events because I'm too powerful, and it just if I was a part of the event would be over in a single issue. And Phantom Stranger is like, I'm just gonna call bullshit because, like, you do this all the time, and I just don't get why you do it when you have the power to stop this. And Spectre is like, because who am I to decide how this ends? If this is how it's supposed to end, why should I decide to go up against his orders, you know? And so Spectre is obviously referring to whatever god there is in this universe. Like, I will not change his plans. If this is the end, then it's the end. So, Superman's gang, which includes himself, Fire, Alpha Centurion, both Green Lanterns, or one of them is actually called the Sentinel, which is Alan Scott, and then Kyle Rayner is the current Green Lantern, Firestorm, like, he gets them all to create a sun, which I don't know why they all had to do it, because Firestorm has the ability to create literally anything. So he could have just created a sun by himself, but I guess Superman wanted everyone to feel like they played a part. So he's like, I like to imagine that Firestorm is the one that actually created the sun while everyone else was, like, thought they were doing something. So, they create this little sun, or like a big sun, for the Sun Eater to try and draw it away from the real sun. And it goes towards their sun and starts eating it. And as soon as it starts eating it, like, Superman and his group, they almost die. Alpha Centurion actually manages to, like, pull them away from the Sun Eater, and a bunch of them get, like, frostbite, because apparently the Sun Eater just, like, sucks out all the heat, and so there's just nothing but cold. So he was sucking the heat out of their bodies and giving them frostbite. And Superman's just like, I gotta save Earth, like, I gotta stop him from eating the sun. And Firestorm's just like, no, We need to protect the people on Earth. That's all we can do now. It's too late for the sun. And Dusk is like, the cold dark shadow of death descends yet again, changing my words of warning into a prophecy of doom, while I change not a thing. Why do I allow myself to hope it will ever be different? And everyone around the world sees the sun being destroyed. Like, it starts turning black, and darkness is cast over the earth. Lex Luthor is on holiday, and he's like talking to his girlfriend Erica, and she's like, I suppose it's the end of the world, Lex. It's like, all it means is our honeymoon's over, Erica. I'm calling in our private plane. And that's the end of issue 1. It ends with it ends with the sun being eaten. Darkness is now enshrouding the entire planet. But Earth isn't going to stand down. They're going to fight back. So now we're going to be reading issue 2, or week 2, Chaos. These have like different titles. So on the cover it says it's like week 2, Chaos. But then the actual title of the chapter is Darker Grows the Night. But yeah. Let's go. Okay, before we get into issue 2 of Final Night, a bunch of tie-ins did happen at this point in time. The only ones I read, or I'm going to read, I've read the Green Lantern one. I'm not going to be reading the Flash one until after issue 3, because that's when it takes place. But I've read the Green Lantern one already, which is issue 80. And to summarize what happens in that one, Kyle Rayner faces Dr. Light, who was trapped inside of the Green Lantern, like Hal Jordan's lantern, when Hal Jordan faced him in an earlier Green Lantern issue before he became Parallax. So they fight each other, and then this is after the sun has been eaten, and Dr. Light, like Kyle tries to convince Dr. Light to help him save the planet because he's got light powers, so he could possibly help fix the sun. But Dr. Light chooses to save his own skin and escapes. And so Kyle goes back to Donna Troy, who he is dating at the moment, and spends some time with her and tells her that like he's got to go and help the Justice League, but he will come back to her because he loves her. And they embrace, and then he leaves, and that's what happens in that tie-in. So getting into issue 2 of Final Night, something surprising is happening. Something that doesn't happen very often. I mean, it happened in the 90s because Lex Luthor went through a period where he was pretending to be a good guy when he was in a clone body, but now he's in his regular body. And he and Superman are teaming up for the first time ever since Lex Luthor has gone back to just being a villain. Because it's the end of the world. They don't really have much of a choice. They got to come to terms with one another, because what's the point of being against each other when everything's ending? Meanwhile, Oracle is helping communicate with a bunch of heroes to go around and save people. She's got Wonder Woman and a group of other heroes, including Big Barda, the Ray, Guardian, and Captain Marvel Jr. to go and deal with a large part of the city that is on fire. So they go in there to save a group of people. There's actually a woman there who sees Ray and kind of sees him as like a god and prays to him to help her get back to her village. So he decides to do that. And he actually takes her back to the village and then tells everyone in the village that like nobody deserves to die and that he's going to do whatever he can to help fix what's going on. Wonder Woman fixes the problem by bringing a fire engine, an entire fire engine, to the fire to put it out. Meanwhile, Vandal Savage is planning on leaving Earth because he's immortal. He doesn't want to die with the Earth. He just wants to leave it, and he's going to steal a portrait of a woman that he knew 500 years ago, who he forced to get a portrait done of herself so that he could have her forever as this portrait, and that he hopes one day that he can, like, find her soul and take her soul and have it forever. And it's this whole thing with Vandal where he's insane, obviously. But he's planning on leaving the planet, and Batman is planning on stopping him. So he shows up to stop him from stealing this portrait. It's a Mona Lisa, actually, is what the portrait is. So it's like, oh, Vandal Savage was in love with Mona Lisa, and she turned him down, and that really made him mad. So Batman shows up to stop Vandal Savage, and Vandal pulls out he just straight up pulls out, like, an SMG, like, mini SMG, and starts shooting at Batman. Because this Vandal Savage is, like, this is still serial killer Vandal Savage from The Flash. Like, he hasn't been retconned in any way. He's still... This Vandal Savage was trying to eat people's hearts at one point. But he shoots at Batman, and the bullets somehow miss Batman, allowing him to throw a batarang to wrap up Vandal. And Vandal's like, how did the bullets miss? They're Teflon coated, hollow points, even with body armor. And it turns out that, like, Batman's like, the same way I got here, Superman. And it turns out Superman stopped the bullets, but he's having a hard time breathing. Like, running really exhausted him because without the sun, he's starting to lose his powers. And because of that, Lex Luthor is like, we can't rely on Superman. We can only rely on ourselves and me, because I'm going to save the world, because I'm Lex Luthor, and that's all I care about. I don't actually care about saving people. I just care about being the hero. So, and Dusk is just like, you can try, but you're probably going to fail, because I've seen so many worlds try to stop this, and they've all failed. Lex Luthor takes Brainiac 5 under his wing, and is like, let me show you how we're going to fix this. We're going to send a probe deep into the Sun Eater to find the sun, so I can gather as much data as I can from this thing, and then we can figure out how to stop this. So they actually send Kyle Rayner out into the Sun Eater. He goes inside, and he gets close to the sun, and he tells them that he wants to get out because it's starting to get really warm. And Lex Luthor orders Saturn Girl to use her powers to make Kyle Rayner stay in the Sun Eater and keep going. And then Kyle Rayner disappears. Saturn Girl is like, I can't sense him anymore. He's gone. So we're left on a bit of a cliffhanger of where's Kyle? Meanwhile, the Justice Society, like some of the members of the Justice Society, are getting together in order to help people. You know, you got Jay Garrick. You got Ted Grant, who is Wildcat, and then you've got Liberty Bell, and they're going to visit Starman in order to ask him for their help, but he wants to stay behind and just look through like his telescope, and spend what's possibly his last day doing what he loves doing, which is just looking at the stars. And they have no hard feelings. They're like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, you know. We're just going to go out and see if we can help people. Yeah, meanwhile, Dusk and Black Canary are convening in Dusk's ship because she's planning on leaving the planet because she doesn't want to die on planet Earth. And she usually takes something from each planet that she's gone to as a little bit of a memory to keep those planets alive in history. And that's when a bunch of people show up, because they all blame Dusk for what's going on. They're like, oh, you led this monster to this planet, and so you're gonna pay for that. And so they start attacking Dusk and Black Canary, and Black Canary almost gets shot by someone, but the Flash comes in and he takes the gun. He's actually here with Nightwing and Robin. They're all here to help Dusk. And so they start getting into a big fight with these civilians, but they actually become overwhelmed by them. Flash gets knocked in the back of the head, and Nightwing and Robin start struggling. And then somebody watching from an alleyway decides that he's going to go in and help them. And it turns out that this person who comes in and saves Dusk from being killed, calls himself Pharaoh. And the interesting thing about Pharaoh, he's got like an iron mask on and like a blue and white suit. The interesting thing about Pharaoh is before, I think it was before Crisis on Infinite Earths, there was a member of the Legion of Superheroes called Pharaoh Lad. And he was one of the only Legion of Superhero members who wasn't retconned, like he was retconned away, like he was retconned out after Crisis. He didn't exist anymore. And so this is him being rebooted or being brought back. Like this is the new Pharaoh Lad, except now he's just called Pharaoh. I don't know anything more about him other than that, but this is actually his reintroduction into the DC universe. So we're probably gonna learn some more about him in the coming issues of the Final Night. But yeah, that's the end of issue 2. It ends with Pharaoh coming in and saving Dusk, and we're gonna find out what happens next in issue 3, Keeping Hope Alive. So issue 3, it actually takes place 2 days after the scene that we previously saw with Pharaoh saving Dusk, because now he's just saved Wildcat alongside Warrior, Guy Gardner. And Wildcat's in real bad condition. He takes him back to Warriors, which is a bar that Guy Gardner owns. And the local doctor there that they've got takes a look at Wildcat, but they don't. Then the power goes off. And so Warrior just blasts a nearby wall to open up where like the cabling is. And Lightning Lass uses her abilities to turn the lights back on. And then the Doctor asks Inferno, who is another member of the Legion of Superheroes, to use her powers to help like cauterize wounds and stuff that are on Ted, because he's got internal bleeding and all sorts. And Lightning Lass speaks to Pharaoh, saying that she's going to go and find more people that might need help. And she gives Pharaoh, because she saw that Pharaoh was like saving people, she was like, yeah, you did a great job saving people, so I trust you with my Legion ring. I'm gonna need it back though. And she gives him his Legion ring, which is a bit of a throwback to, like, you know, remember when Pharaoh Lad was a member of the Legion of Superheroes? And it's kind of like hinting at the fact that this Pharaoh might know who he was before. Like, this might be the same Pharaoh, like reincarnated or something, or like he has memories of being on the Legion, or, you know, whatever. I feel like they're leading towards that. Etrigan the Demon broadcasts to the world that the demons are willing to help in exchange for something once they're done. But it wouldn't be anything they wouldn't be asking for anything too much. But Earth doesn't trust the demons, and so they just give them the middle finger, and they're just like, no, we're not gonna get help to the demons. We're not gonna get help from the demons. Lex Luthor figures out that the planet is cooling down at a much slower rate than they realized, like than they thought it would. And it turns out that's because Gaia, the spirit of Earth itself, which is just a giant woman inside the planet, is being kept warm enough by the Spectre that it's keeping the cold at bay, but eventually it will take over. But that's why it's taking longer for Earth to freeze over. It's because Gaia and Spectre are helping one another to stop it. Ted Knight, aka Starman, has noticed something through his telescope. He's noticed that the sun's diameter is shrinking. And it turns out that the sun isn't disappearing, like it isn't being fully eaten by the Sun Eater. It's trying to heal itself in the worst way possible. It's going to go supernova, and when it does, it'll destroy the entire solar system. And Brainiac 5 is the one who figures this out. So they've got not a lot of time. It's not going to take very long. About 24 hours and the sun's going to explode and incinerate everything. Superman says that he wants to help, and Lex Luthor is like, you don't have any powers, buddy. You can't help us. Go make a cup of tea or something. And meanwhile, Dusk is about to leave the planet, and Phantom Stranger meets up with her and is like, why didn't you tell everyone what was going on right away? And Dusk is like, because I've learnt not to disclose information when I don't trust people, and I don't trust the people of Earth because a big group of them tried to kill me. So Phantom Stranger is like, alright, if you don't believe in Earth, then let me give you reasons to believe in them and to not abandon them. And so he starts taking her around to different parts of the planet to show different people on Earth helping people. So we find that Oracle is on the phone to her dad about what's going on, and then she just continues her work helping communicate with other heroes to tell them what's going on. She actually hears about the fact that the sun's about to explode, so she relays the information to everyone else. It turns out when Ray visited the village that he went to, they asked him to help give them light and warmth, and he used all of his power to try and do it. But in doing so, he almost killed himself, and he still wasn't able to succeed. So Zatanna and Fire show up in order to help stop him from dying, and in order to do so, Fire has to turn into her fire form, and then Zatanna uses her magic to channel Fire's flames into Ray to bring him back to life. And the Phantom Stranger and Dusk are watching all of this happen in incorporeal forms, so that like no one can see that they're there or notice them. And then Zatanna calls Firestorm in because she knows that Firestorm can at least help this village for however long they have left. Because they're not going to have long. They've only got a day, but they can help them. So Firestorm just creates a whole bunch of little mini suns for this village to survive and at least have warmth. Meanwhile, Alan Scott, the Sentinel, who used to be Green Lantern, is helping people in Kyoto. And then his son and daughter, Jade and Obsidian, show up because they want to be together as a family. And Alan Scott is like, hey, why don't we all go off and help people, and then we'll come back here and we'll be together as a family before the end. And Dusk is like, do they not realize how hollow that word is now? Would they rather die here than live somewhere else? And Phantom Stranger is like, mankind believes they can overcome any obstacle, Dusk. Those who fly and bend steel in their bare hands embody those beliefs. They are these people's dreams made flesh. Their bright costumes are beacons of hope in the darkness, banners of the best that humanity sees in itself. They are not gods. Often they are all too human. But this is what draws people to these heroes. That behind the mask, hidden within the folds of a cape, is one of them. Haunted by the same demons, overcoming the same fears as anyone else. At times, mankind may succumb to those fears, but their champions remind them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That life is always within their grasp. That life is always within their grasp. That one man or woman can make a difference, and that when banded together, nothing is impossible. And then he drops her off, and Dusk finally realizes that people can change, and that Earth isn't worth abandoning, because the group of guys that tried to kill her earlier find her in the middle of an alleyway, and instead of trying to kill her this time, they've had a change of heart, and they decide to bring her to Warriors in order to get help. And this is when Dusk realizes that man can change, and that people can change for the better. Superman, or Clark Kent, goes back to his to the Kent farm to reunite with his mum and dad, possibly for the last time, because the world is going to end, and they don't know it yet. So Clark shows up, and he's like, I've just come here to, spend our last moments together. And Martha is like, last moments? Like, what are you talking about? Meanwhile, Warrior and Lightning Lass are talking to one another, and Warrior's like reminiscing about how he used to be a Green Lantern. And he's like, I used to have the power to do whatever I wanted. You know, what I wouldn't give for a little of that right now. Guess it's true that saying about the grass on the other side always being greener. And as he says that, this green light appears before him. And that's where issue 3 ends. What happened? What has Guy Gardner seen that's green? We'll find out in the Final Night Parallax Emerald Night, which is a tie-in to the Final Night that's incredibly important because it follows Parallax, aka Hal Jordan. Gonna see what happens with him during this event. And then after this, I'm going to do the Flash tie-in because it takes place after issue 3. I thought I would do Parallax first because issue 3 directly leads into Parallax Emerald Night, and then we can do Flash after that, because it'd be a bit weird if I did Flash and then did this. So yeah, let's talk about the Final Night Parallax Emerald Night. Written by Ron Mars with art by Mike McCone and Mark McKenna. Alright, so the story begins with Cyborg Superman, or I think at this point he's just known as Hank Henshaw, because he doesn't even really look like Superman anymore. He's got this whole new design that's just like red and black, because Superman came back, so there was no reason for him to look like Superman anymore. Though eventually other writers and artists would make him go back to just being a cyborg Superman. He's at what is known as the Source Wall. Now the Source Wall, at this point in time, it's just called the Wall. Eventually, it would be called the Source Wall. But the Wall guards the Source, and the Source is everything. The Source is like the end of it's the source of the universe. It's everything. So if you somehow gain control of the Source, you can shape the universe however you want to. But this Wall is here to protect it, and a bunch of these beings known as the Promethean Giants tried to gain the power of the Source, and their punishment was to become one with the Wall. So the Wall just has a ton of stone giants amongst it. The reason Cyborg Superman is there is because he's been chased there by Hal Jordan, aka Parallax. Because Parallax wants to get revenge. But he doesn't... he wants to get revenge, but he doesn't call it revenge. He says that it's not him that wants revenge, it's the 7 million people that Cyborg Superman was responsible for killing. And Mongol's already dead, because he died in Underworld Unleashed. And so all that's left is Cyborg Superman. Because as you may know, or you may not know, back in the Reign of Superman storyline, Reign of the Superman, Cyborg Superman and Mongol attacked Coast City and destroyed it, killing everyone. Except a handful of people, like Carol Ferris and Thomas Kalmaku. They survived, but everyone else died. Because I guess they just weren't in the city at the time. So Cyborg Superman says that it's impossible for Parallax to kill him, and that he's probably not even going to kill him. He's just going to take him to jail or something, because that's what heroes do. And Parallax is like, I'm not taking you to jail. I'm erasing you from existence. So he blasts a hole through Cyborg Superman's chest, but Hank Henshaw has regenerative abilities, so he just fixes the hole. And a fight breaks out between the two of them. You know, Hal starts summoning giant dragons and stuff. It's pretty cool. But the fight doesn't last very long, because Hal grabs Hank Henshaw by the throat and then creates everyone that died in Coast City out of green energy. He creates green energy constructs of all 7 million people, and they overwhelm Cyborg Superman, and he's like, and they all climb over him and stuff, and he gets completely destroyed by all of these people, the people he was responsible for killing, and he's just completely erased from existence. And now that Hank Henshaw is dead, Hal doesn't know what to do next. He relates a lot to the Promethean Giants because they didn't know what their goal was, and so they eventually turned to the Source Wall. So Hal considers the idea of is he supposed to, do something with the Source Wall now? Is he going to try and take over the Source Wall and bend it to its will, to his will? Before he can do anything, though, Kyle Rayner shows up because he's looking for Hal. And when he shows up, Hal is like, where's everyone else? Are you coming to attack me again? And Kyle's like, no, I come in peace. The others don't even know I'm here. You don't know what's going on right now on Earth? And Hal's like, what's going on? And Kyle says, like, this thing called the Sun Eater has come and has eaten the sun. And Earth is doomed. Like, it's going to be destroyed. I came to ask you for help because I think you're the only person powerful enough to save us. I know that you've done a lot of terrible things, but I also know that you feel bad for everything that you've done and you want an opportunity to prove that you can still be a hero. And I was like, yeah, like, I tried to do the right thing and nobody believed me. And he's talking about 0 Hour. I don't know if I'm going to be able to help. I'm going to need some time to think about this. Like, go. And he uses his powers to make Kyle go away. I need to see this for myself. And he goes and he sees the state of the sun, how it's become just a giant black mass that's, being destroyed. And so Hal goes and visits Guy Gardner. He goes and sees him and he says to Guy, I always hated you, but only recently have I realized that we just have a lot more in common. Because everyone always hated you, but they misunderstood you. Because you always got the job done, even though it wasn't in the greatest way. You did come through as a hero. And now people are treating me the same way. And I just want to ask, like, how did you get through that? And continue doing this stuff? And Guy's just like, I just didn't give a damn what anybody else thought. That's all it is, really. That's the only thing that keeps me pushing forward, not giving a damn. And Hal's like, thank you. Like, you actually helped. And he leaves Guy, and then he goes and sees Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is currently in hospital. He actually can't walk because he used to be a member of the Dark Stars, and this big war with the Dark Stars happened between the Dark Stars and one of Darkseid's children. And the Dark Stars were basically wiped out to the point that they had to disband. And Jon sacrificed himself, leaving him bedridden and unable to walk. So Hal goes and visits him and says, like, you were always a close friend of mine, and I've come to visit you because I want to let you know that this is probably the last time I'm going to see you, and that, like, I hope to be as good of a hero as you were, and I'm proud of you, and there is a light in your future. And as he says that, he grabs Jon's hand, and Jon is able to walk again. He gives Jon the ability to walk again, and Jon's just like, what do you mean about a light in my future? And as he says that, Hal leaves and disappears. And he goes and visits Oliver Queen's grave because Oliver Queen is dead. There was like this whole situation where Oliver had his arm stuck in a machine on a plane that was going to explode, and Superman tried to save him by cutting his arm off, and Oliver Queen refused, and so Superman made the hard decision to destroy the plane at the wish of Oliver Queen, killing him. And now his son has taken over. His son Connor Hawke has taken over the new Green Arrow. So Hal goes and visits Oliver Queen's grave, and he leaves some roses there, and then disappears. And then he goes and visits Thomas Kamaku, a character who we have not seen in a long time. And Hal hasn't seen in a long time. And Thomas is the only person, it's like one of the only people who still believed in Hal after everything. He heard all these things about Hal, and he was like, I know it's not true. Also, I've still been writing my book about you, because back in, like, the old Green Lantern comics, like, Thomas was writing a journal about Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern, And he's like, I'll go grab it. Like, I'll show you it. And Hal's just like, you can show me. Like, you're not going to be able to show me because I've got to go. But I'll give you the perfect ending for your journal. And he disappears. And Thomas is just like, I found it. I'm only... Hal? And so, yeah, Hal disappears. And Thomas doesn't really get a chance to say goodbye to him. And then he goes and he sees Carol. And Hal is like, Carol, you've always been the one. I have the power to take us away from everything, and we can just be together. And Carol's like, you know that that's not possible. You also know that you're the only person who can stop this. I believe that you can stop this. I believe that you can be the hero that you want to be because you're my hero. And I've always believed in you. I know we've had our ups and downs, but I've always believed in you, and I've always loved you. And Hal and Carol have one last kiss, and then Hal disappears, and Carol, like, tears up. And then he heads off, and then Hal heads off to the crater that was once Coast City, where he reminisces about Coast City and about everything that's happened. And then he's like, alright, let's get this over with. And that's when Hal reveals that Ganthet, one of the Guardians, the only Guardian left living, the one that gave Kyle Rayner his ring, is currently residing in Hal Jordan, because the last time Parallax showed up, Ganthet came back and he decided to stay in Parallax to try and keep him in check. So he comes out, and he knows what Hal is going to do. He knows the decision Hal is going to make. And Hal is like, but he's also like, yeah, but you, like, made all these terrible choices. Have you come to terms with those choices? And Hal is like, I only made those choices because you, the Guardians, didn't believe in me and you weren't there for me when you needed me. And Ganthet is like, well, we're not going to, like, I'm not going to forgive you for what you did, Hal, but I will say that, like, we as Guardians made a mistake when we ignored you. And I'm sorry. And then he brings forth a ring and is like, if you want to be a Green Lantern again, I'll allow you to be a Green Lantern. And Hal was like, I tried to become a Green... Like, I tried to get my old ring back a while back, and all it proved to me was that I'm just not worthy of being a Green Lantern anymore. And that it's not my destiny. But I think I know what my destiny is now. I think I know what I need to do. And he says, I turned it all over in my mind. From the moment a dying alien gave me a wondrous ring, I have been blessed. My life has been played out on a grand scale. I've done miraculous things, and I've done terrible things. I've committed sins I never dreamed possible. Did I fall into the abyss and lose myself, or did I simply gaze into it for a time and turn away? And then Kyle is like, Hal, like, what are you doing here? And Hal is like, I want you to go to them, Kyle. Go to them. And as he says that, he says to himself, he's like, the whole of my life, the triumphs and the tragedies, have led me to this moment, this choice. He's like, go to them, Kyle, and tell them that I'll help. And so Hal has decided to help the heroes of Earth stop the Sun Eater at whatever cost. And that's where this, I guess you could call it a tie-in. It's not really a tie-in though, because it's very important to the overall event. But it's definitely the best part of this event so far. And is one of the main reasons to read Final Night, is reading this Parallax issue, because it's so good. Just seeing Hal reminisce and visit those in his life and try and recompense for what he's done, like try and make recompense for what he's done in the past. And so now that we're done with that issue, we're going to be talking about the Flash tie-in, because we got to do that, because it takes place in this event. I just wanted to get that one out of the way, because not only is it really important, but it took place directly after the last issue. And so before we do the Final Night issue 4, which is the final issue of the Final Night, we'll talk about the Flash tie-in and what happens in that with Wally West. So, the Final Night tie-in for the Flash, which is issue 119, written by Mark Waid, Brian Augustine, with art by Paul Ryan, who is the new artist of The Flash, and Jose Martin Jr., who is continuing doing inks because he's been with The Flash since, I think, the beginning of the reboot, which is a long time. 119 issues, I'm pretty sure. Like, I think there might have been other inkers in between, but he's done a lot. He's probably done at least over 100 of just Flash issues alone. So, as you would expect from a Final Night tie-in, this issue deals a lot with Wally West going around and helping people at night, but it also deals with his relationship with Linda and how that is affected by this event. So it begins with Wally saving an upturned vehicle. He breaks the door off. He vibrates like the door handle so that it heats up enough so that he can like open the door, and then he breaks the door off and saves the guy. And the guy's like, I gotta get back to my family in Greenfield. And so Flash runs him there and drops him off with his family. And he's been keeping himself at a low vibration so that he doesn't freeze. But even the cold is beginning to get to him as well. Not just the cold, but like just the situation in general. Like, Wally is starting to get depressed because, as he recently learned alongside we did, even if they reignite the sun, there's a good chance that the sun will vaporize everything. So things are looking pretty grim. So Wally heads back to the hospital where Linda currently is, because previously she was frozen. In the Flash, if you haven't been listening to the Flash episodes, she was frozen by a machine that Abracadabra and Dr. Polaris used to create a different Ice Age. And Wally thawed her out, and so she's still dealing with like frostbite and stuff in the hospital. So they reunite and they hug it out. And Wally helps warm her up, and then Linda and Wally talk about Iris and how Iris knew what was going on, and that maybe she'd be able to know like how to fix things. And Wally is like, I don't think Iris exactly knew how to fix this, and also even if she did, the future changes, so like her way of beating this may not be the way that we're supposed to, but we won't know because like we're not, like, I refuse to look at her book and see the future and stuff. I have faith that the heroes will be able to figure it out on their own. And then Linda realizes that Wally is still keeping something from her because she knows him well enough, and is like, alright, tell me what it is you're hiding. Like, we made a promise that we wouldn't lie to each other anymore. And that's when Wally admits that even if they reignite the sun, it might vaporize everything. And Linda's like, well, if that's the case, and there's a good chance we're all gonna die, we should tell everyone. Like, I should report it. Because I'm a reporter, I should tell everyone. And Wally's like, no, if you do that, that's gonna cause a ton of panic. And Linda's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone's already like, how much more panic could there possibly be? There's already so much. People deserve to know so that they can make amends for things and say goodbye to their loved ones. And Wally is just like, yeah, but you don't get it. Like, we might not die. Like, I don't think it's necessary. The heroes will pull through. They're going to save everyone. And Linda's like, you don't know that. You really don't. Like, I can see it on your face. You don't know if you believe that or not. So Wally's like, if you tell everyone, that opens up the doors for the criminals to do whatever they want because it's the last night and they won't care anymore. They just won't give a crap. They'll start killing people. We'll have dead ex-wives and husbands and bosses all over the place because people just won't care anymore, and they'll start doing whatever they want. And then Wally is just like, but in the end, it's your choice. You can choose what you want to do, but just know that it's your choice, not mine. And so if something comes from that, you have to deal with it. Because I've already taken my stance on this. I've already told you what I think. Now it's just up to you, Linda. And as they're arguing, these guys come in on snowmobiles, and Wally decides that he needs to go and stop them. Turns out they're attacking the hospital because they want all the hospital supplies because it's the end of the world. So Wally comes in and takes their guns away and starts fighting them. And then one of the guys tries to get away, and so Wally chases after him, but he loses sight of him because not only is the cold really getting to him, but also the situation is making him depressed, so he's not working at 100%. And while Wally is away, Linda decides that she's going to tell everyone. So she has her cameraman Rob set up his camera, and she broadcasts herself to the entire public. The guy that Wally was chasing after meets up with the rest of the other guys. They all look the same. They're all like a bunch of guys just wearing like ski masks and stuff. He's like, "Hey, you'd let him right to us." And he's like, "Nah, I lost him ages ago. It's all good." And then Wally pops out of the snow and is like, "Whoever said the cockroaches will inherit the earth were right." And then he beats up all the dudes, and then buries them in snow, like a bunch of them, and then sees a bunch of like more of them, and they all start shooting at him, and then he buries them in snow too. So there's like two separate groups, and he like buries them all in snow, and then takes them all into the authorities, and heads back to and then he heads to a nearby public shelter, and it's in order to get out of the cold, and it's while he's in there that Linda comes on the screen and tells everyone that the world is probably going to end, like that even if the heroes reignite the sun, there's a good chance it'll vaporize everything. But she doesn't end there. She actually gives an entire speech, which I'm going to read out because I feel like I should. Its burden has bent many of you, broken others. Despite the courage of your spirit, I have seen a deep despair in your eyes, and that despair is a weight that cannot help but drag you down. The temptation you feel is to abandon hope. You must not. We have seen Earth's heroes beat the odds all our lives. It's what they do, and it's what they do best. Even now they struggle, cold and alone, in the vastness of space. No word can reach them, no sound, nothing but the tether of our faith. Their power doesn't come from magic rings or alien heritage. It comes from our belief in them, our confidence that they embody all that is bright and enduring about the human race. As long as that confidence shines, they will not let us down. Though they have saved this world time and time again, this will be their greatest challenge. They need our faith now more than ever. Find the strength to let hope flourish. That is our only salvation, and our only prayer for a brighter dawn. And as she says this, Wally puts his mask back on, because this gives him the strength to continue helping people during this final night, and helps him get out of the depressive state that he's been in lately. And so he heads to Linda, and he's like, "You did great. Like, I'm just sorry you had to go to so much trouble to get through to me." She's like, "I'm used to it. Come here, you." And she's like, "Stronger?" He's like, "Much. I still have a lot of work to do today. But as always, you're the beacon that guides me through even the darkest night. And however long it may be, I'll love you till the end of time." And as Wally and Linda hug each other, and Officer is like, "Hey, like, we got a problem over here." And Wally's like, "Alright, I gotta go help this guy. I'll see you later." And Linda's like, "I have faith." And yeah, Wally heads off to go continue saving people, and that's the end of the tie-in. Very good tie-in. Mark Waid normally does write good tie-ins. I think the only one he did that wasn't that great was the Bloodlines one, but like, there's only so much he can do to help an event like Bloodlines. Like, pretty much most of the tie-ins for that event were doomed because the premise alone was just not good. But this tie-in, pretty damn good. And so now that we're done with the Flash tie-in, we're going to be talking about the Final Night issue 4, which is the final issue of the event. And then after that, we're going to be talking about Green Lantern issue 81, which is the epilogue. All right, so issue 4 actually takes place during and after the Eternal Parallax Eternal Night issue that we just read. So the beginning of it takes place around the beginning of that, where Kyle goes and asks Parallax for help, and Parallax sends him away, and so Kyle heads back to Earth, which is where we start off in this, where he finds that Wonder Woman is helping people, and things are getting a little bit more on track, but Wonder Woman's like, it's still pretty crap here. We're still gonna need your help, Kyle, if you're willing. And so Kyle agrees to help them, and they all gather at Lex Luthor's little base, and he tells them that what his plan is. So the plan is that he had the Flash make a bunch of tiny little force field devices, and he's going to send somebody out on a ship so that they can put all of the force field devices around the sun so that when it explodes, the force fields will contain 97% of the blast and hopefully also kill the Sun Eater at the same time. And it's a very dangerous mission. It's basically a suicide mission, and Lex Luthor is a prick, and he doesn't want to go himself, so he's just going to send somebody else to do it for him, and he picks Kyle Rayner. And you would think that Kyle is sad about this, but no, he's happy. He's like, yeah, another chance to prove myself. I've already been to the sun before. I'll do it again. I'll be a hero. But as he says this, Kyle disappears, and as we know, the reason he disappears is because Parallax has summoned him in order to tell him that he wants to help. So Batman is just straight up like, it was Luthor's idea to begin with, so maybe we should send him to the sun. Because it's his ship and it's his idea, and also I don't like Lex Luthor, so I'm happy if he dies. It's a win-win situation. And Lex Luthor is like, what are you prattling about? It's a suicide mission. I'm not going to go. I did this so I could live. Don't you understand? And Superman is like, perfectly. Your reaction's perfectly human, Luthor. Which is why I'll go. I'll happily go. And Captain Marvel was like, but you don't have your powers, Superman. Ever since the sun was being destroyed, you've lost your powers. Like, you might not survive this. And Superman is like, somebody's got to do it. I'm willing to do it. And Pharaoh is like, oh, wow. And Cosmic Boy is like, it's not the powers that makes Superman who he is. It's his heart and his courage. And so Superman goes and he writes a letter to Lois. And they notice that the ship is setting off by itself. And that Superman isn't on it. Superman's just like, what's going on? Who's on that ship? And it turns out that the person that's on the ship is Pharaoh. He's deciding that he wants to be like Superman and sacrifice himself. But he says he wants to come, he's going to try and come back because he promised to give Saturn Girl her ring back. And at this time, Parallax shows up. He's like, hey guys, I showed up because Kyle asked for my help and I decided I want to help. And immediately they're like, this young kid named Pharaoh has sent himself pretty much to his own death. We want you to go out there and help him. And Batman doesn't trust Hal. He's like, you're evil. I don't think you changed at all. I don't think you've changed. And Hal was like, no, I haven't changed, but I still want to help. And he's like, and when I go out there, I feel like I have the power to not only save the sun, but absorb the Sun Eater itself and fix everything. Because that's really the key. As long as we destroy the Sun Eater, the sun should be okay. And I'll heal the sun at the same time, and Earth will be saved. And Superman is just like, I'd say we can live with that. I always hoped you'd come back, Hal. And Hal's just like, I'm not coming back, Superman. I'm just setting things right. That's all I ever wanted to do. So Pharaoh's ship gets sent hurtling through space, and he gets close to the sun, and the sun begins exploding, and fissures from the sun start spurting out of it, and one of them hits Pharaoh's ship, and he almost gets obliterated. His mask even starts melting, but Parallax saves him, pulls him out, and fixes his mask and stuff, because Parallax can do pretty much anything. And he's like, I know how important rings can be. Get it? Because he's a Green Lantern. And so Pharaoh's like, what are you going to do now? And Hal's just like, I'm going to save the universe and I'm going to send you home. See ya. And he like basically just throws Pharaoh Lad back to Earth. And then Hal gives like his heroic speech as he absorbs the Sun Eater. I know that's what they fear, at least. Batman, even Superman on some level, and everyone in between. But I took an oath a long time ago, and that oath taught me something none of them will ever understand. There are two ways to dispel the darkness. To shine a light, and then as he's saying this, he's like, in brightest day, in darkest night, or to draw the darkness in. No evil... Ugh. Razor-edged blackness tears its way up my arms. I knew it'd be hell, absorbing the Sun Eater. But it's all I can do to keep it from absorbing me. There's no going back. There never was. Not since the first day I said those words. No evil shall escape my sight. I've always done what I truly believed was right. At first people called me a hero for it, and then a villain. As the memory of what I've done and been fades, I hope I will be seen. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power in a different light. And it ends there as he explodes in a power of green energy, absorbing the Sun Eater and saving the planet. And this is the moment that Hal Jordan dies, because he doesn't come back from this. Hal Jordan is dead. And I really love this speech because instead of it, you're thinking it's going to be like, beware my power, Green Lantern's might, but they line it up with the rest of his speech. So he's like, beware my power in a different light. And I really like that. I think that's great. Great thinking. So Pharaoh sees the massive green explosion. Everybody does. The green energy envelops the planet Earth from space. Everybody sees it, and they all know that it's Hal that's done it. And Kyle's like, wow, Hal saved everyone. Can't wait to see him when he gets back. And Saturn Girl is like, I can't sense his brainwaves. I'm afraid it took everything he had to defeat the Sun Eater. Everything. And then you do like a little meme of Thanos, but with Hal, like with Parallax's face, and it's like, how much did it take? Everything. And so Batman and Superman meet up, and Hal is like, I know you I know you didn't believe in Hal, but look what he did. He saved the planet. And Batman's like, yeah, but he said he didn't change, so whatever. Like, he saved the planet, but he was still a villain, so who cares? Superman is like, sometimes people don't think they've changed, even though they have. And Batman's like, yeah, whatever. Like, that doesn't change the fact that he did a lot of bad things. You know, too bad that isn't how he always lived, being a good guy. And so Batman, who is an asshole, just jumps off the building and leaves Superman. And then it ends with presumably Hal's spirit or something talking. And he's like, nearly gleaming in the sunlight, the Man of Steel watches the Dark Knight disappear into the shadows. They are the world's finest heroes, and all the rest follow the lead of one or the other. They are as different as night and day, but that is what helps them guarantee the words that seem to hang in the new light. In brightest day, in darkest night, no evil shall escape my sight. And we have like a lovely shot of Metropolis, basking in the warmth of the sun now that the sun is back. But Superman still doesn't have any powers. And that's the end of the final night. But it's not the end of this episode, because we've still got one more issue to talk about. And that's Green Lantern issue 81, which is the funeral of Hal Jordan. So, this issue was written by Ron Mars, with art by Daryl Banks and Romeo Tangal, another inker who I have read a lot of stuff from, because he was inking everything at the same time. Basically, anything Jose Marzan Jr. wasn't inking, Romeo Tangal was. This issue is one of those few where I actually want to read a lot of the stuff out loud that is said, because it's a funeral, and so a lot of characters give speeches, and I think it's important that I read those speeches so that you can see what everyone's saying. So it begins with Jon Stewart and Donna Troy, who were both members of the Dark Stars together, arriving at the funeral, like at the service together first. And then they see a bunch of heroes like Captain Marvel and Martian Manhunter all fly in. Everyone has shown up for Hal's funeral. It's pretty heartwarming, including Guy Gardner. And so Jon and Guy reunite, and Donna decides that she needs to go reunite with a couple of people that she recognizes at the funeral as well. It turns out that this person that she's reuniting with is Dick Grayson, Nightwing, who has his new costume that he got in 1996 at the start of his own series. It's his most iconic look. He finally has the black and blue look. So Hal is like, quite a not Hal. Dick is like, quite a turnabout, huh? Hardly a suit and tie to be seen, but I guess this passes for formal attire in our line of work. This must be an ordeal for Green Lantern. And Donna's like, yeah, he's been going through a lot. And in fact, you've never met each other. I should go introduce you. And it's at this point that I realized, like, yeah, Dick Grayson and Kyle Rayner haven't met yet, because when Kyle Rayner joined the Titans, Nightwing wasn't a member anymore. So Dick and Kyle meet each other, and Dick is like, how are you doing? And Kyle's like, I'm okay, but, like, they're expecting me to give a speech, and I don't know how I'm going to do that, because I didn't even really know how. It just feels like a huge weight on my shoulders, because I've got to make my speech mean a lot, And Dick is like, I'm going to head inside. And Kyle's like, hey, where's Batman? And Dick is like, oh, he'll be here somewhere. He's quite mad at Hal, so he's probably not going to be with the main crowd. But he'll be somewhere. He's somewhere here. And before they head in, Kyle and Donna talk about the speech that Kyle's going to have to give, and Donna gives him the courage that he needs in order to give his speech. And we'll see the speech a little bit later. A lot of people have come to Hal's funeral. Constantine showed up. He wasn't even invited. He just showed up because he wanted to see what was going on. Thomas Kamaku and Carol Ferris have shown up for obvious reasons. Some Green Lanterns, some of the very few remaining ones, there's like 4 of them, have shown up. And even some of Hal's former villains have shown up, like Tattooed Man and Sonar, the original Sonar, not the one that Kyle fought, a different one. And then the ceremony begins. And the first person... Oh, yeah, Batman is there. Before, I thought this is where we started the speeches, but Batman is at the funeral, and Tim is like, you knew Hal, why aren't you down there with, like, the main guys? And Batman's like, because even though I knew Hal, he became a villain, and he made choices that I don't agree with, and so I'm never going to forgive him. So I'm going to be here, but I'm not forgiving him for what he did. And Batman watches as Superman goes up to the podium and gives his speech. Thank you all for coming. This is the second time I've been asked to preside over something like this. Even one of these funerals is too many. It's never easy to bury one of our own, but this time it's especially hard. I knew Hal Jordan better than many, though not as well as some. I knew him well enough to be sure he'd think we were making too much of a fuss over his passing. It's the kind of man he was. Hal was many things to those of us gathered here. A comrade in arms, a friend, a lover. But he was a hero to all of us. There's nobody to lay to rest, no tomb to erect. The best way we can honor Hal is to remember him. Those who were closest to him would like to share some of those memories. So the first person to come up to the podium is Guy Gardner. He's like, I'm Guy Gardner. Maybe some of you don't know me. That's okay. Maybe some of you know me and don't like me. That's okay too. I don't think Hal liked me as much either. I wasn't his idea of what a hero should be, and I let him know he wasn't my ideal. I was always writing him for being too much of a straight arrow. We were real different, Hal and me. I did my own thing, but deep down I knew Hal was the model. He was an example for me and everybody else in the room. I never told him any of this stuff when he was alive. Guess that's the way it usually is with the people who are important to you. The things that matter are left unsaid, so I'm saying them now. Hal Jordan was the best Green Lantern, the best hero any of us can hope to be. And then John shows up to the podium and he's like, great job, guy. And he gives his speech. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Stewart. I was a Green Lantern. In a very literal way, I'm standing here because of Hal Jordan. A long time ago, I was an angry young man, an out-of-work architect with more attitude than sense. Then I was chosen to be a Green Lantern, and Hal was my teacher, but he taught me more than how to be a hero. I learned how to temper that side of myself, how to be more at peace, and I became a better person for it. I can honestly say I don't know what would have happened to me if Hal hadn't come along and handed me that ring. It's very possible Hal saved my life. That's who he was, what he did. He always put others before himself, so Hal's sacrifice didn't surprise me. Saving the world is the purest expression of everything Hal was about. Hal lost his way toward the end, so much so that many of you were here to oppose him. I've had failures of my own. Which of us hasn't? If you want to believe Hal redeemed himself by reigniting the sun, that's fine. But I believe Hal simply remained true to himself. He proved he never stopped being the hero we knew he was. And that's how he should be remembered. Thank you. And then John turns it over to Dinah, who has come in place of Oliver Queen because Oliver is dead. So she gives a speech for him in his place. I'm not really the one who should be talking to you. The man who should be here in front of you, the man who knew Hal better than any of us, is Oliver Queen. But Ollie's not with us anymore. They were quite a pair, the Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer of our crowd, which I guess makes me Becky Thatcher, just along for the ride. They were a rare breed, both of them. They were heroes. No matter what else they did, whatever paths their lives took, they were heroes. And now they're gone. I doubt we'll see their like again. Ollie and Hal are finally reunited. Huck and Tom watching this from somewhere and having a good laugh over all the pomp and circumstance. That's how I'll always think of them. And then Wally comes up in place of Barry. As the great friends they were, my Uncle Barry and Hal were heroes of a different age. They had a connection like few others. So it seems somehow fitting, or maybe destined, that they both sacrificed themselves for the good of the world. I felt an incredible sense of loss when Barry died. This all-consuming void in my life, and to this day, I still miss him. We're all missing Hal right now, but it gets better. Little by little, day by day, the hurting stops. Maybe this sounds ironic coming from someone who can stretch seconds into hours, but time does heal all wounds. And then Carol comes up to the podium. Even a wound as deep as this one, I feel Hal's death more personally than most of you here because I knew the man he was under the mask. Our romance ebbed and flowed over the years. We had good times and bad. We were apart as much as we were together. But through it all, I always knew that in his heart, Hal was true to me. With his final act, Hal proved he was true to all of us. I'll love him always and cherish the memory of him and the rest of us. The rest of us are left behind to pick up the pieces and carry on without him. And then the final person to come up to the podium is Kyle Rayner to give his speech. I don't have anything prepared, really, so this is just from the heart. Maybe you've been away for a while. Maybe you're wondering, why me? Why am I speaking at Hal's funeral? To tell you the truth, I asked myself the same question. I didn't know him very well. Not as well as a lot of you sitting out there. But I'm carrying on his legacy. At least I'm trying to. I didn't go looking to be Green Lantern. It was just something that happened. Luck, if you want to call it that. I'm not trying to replace Hal. I know I never can. I also know there will never be another like him. But now I'm wearing the ring. It's so much more important to me than it was when it was first given to me. Now I understand what it means. It's not only what I can do with it, the good I can accomplish, it's also the tradition and the standard Hal set. Circumstances put Hal and me at odds, and circumstances put Hal and me at odds for the most part, and I regret that. I didn't have the good fortune many of you had. I didn't know Hal as a friend. And even though I'd like to learn more about Hal, I know enough to say I'm very proud to carry on the name Green Lantern. Hal made the ultimate sacrifice. I know he'll be remembered as the ultimate hero. And he shoots a green energy at the roof, opening a hole in the roof to allow the sun come through. It's like we can all celebrate a new dawn. And everyone at the ceremony moves to the remains of Coast City, where Alan Scott creates a green flame in honor of Hal. It's like, I might look much older than my daughter, but I've been around a long time. I speak from experience when I say, things change. The world moves on as it should. It's our memories that allow us to keep the past close and dear. We remember Hal with these flames. Just as we built a monument to assure Coast City's memory burns eternal, now Hal and the city that meant so much to him can be united forevermore. And then Swamp Thing grows a bunch of plants and grass and stuff, which create, like, the Green Lantern symbol. And Superman announces that the remains of Coast City will become a Garden of Eden for everyone living in Coast City, like, as a memorial for everyone that died, and Hal Jordan, their savior. And then Superman's like, Green Lantern? He's like, yeah. And Kyle creates a green construct of Hal Jordan in the middle of the Garden of Eden. And Batman, of all people, says, maybe I'll never understand what happened to Hal, but I can at least find it in my heart to forgive him. Rest in peace, Hal Jordan. And that's where we end it. We end it with Batman. We end it perfectly, with Batman being the one to give the final words on Hal. The man who didn't trust him anymore and said he would never trust him again, admitting that he does care and that he wishes Hal the best. And that's the end of the final night. Incredible. Especially that final issue, it really hit me. I don't know if you could tell while I was reading some of those speeches. I got a little bit froggy in the throat because it's quite emotional for me reading this, because I've been reading Green Lantern since issue 1. You know, that's where I started. So seeing Hal Jordan from start to end, I know he's coming back eventually, but seeing all this play out chronologically, it definitely hits a lot harder. You can tell Ron Mars, like, really put everything into those speeches. And he stayed true to the characters as well. This is how you write a funeral issue for a big comic book character. But yeah, that's it for this episode this week. Next week, we are going to be covering a few Flash specials. So yeah, I hope to see you then. Have a good one.